Welcome to Copytraders Club, where you can learn how to make more money copy trading. I'm Gavin Macaulay, my name and username on eToro. You can continue the conversation on Discord and Facebook. So you're back for Jay Part 2. Let's not mess about. Here we go. So we were talking about Robert Merck being very communicative. You're also very communicative. You used to do weekly updates, and that has now transitioned into live Twitch streams. They also come out live on YouTube on somebody else's channel. You're aware of that?
Yeah, but, you know.
Is he one of your moderators or something?
Nope. He's just the random guy that just takes it and re-uploads it to YouTube, and he does it before I do, so he gets more views than me. But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't mind. Everyone's got to make a living.
Okay, and you also have a Discord group?
Yes.
Copytraders Club also has a Discord group now.
Yeah, I'm a proud member. Signed up early.
That's right. So there's a link in the show notes. Feel free to come along and talk about all matters copy trading. So you dedicate time to your copiers, and as you've said before, this is your job. Unlike some PIs who maybe have it as a side hustle. And as I say, you're so big, you're a one-man hedge fund, so that limits your choice of investments. You touched on that earlier. There's a liquidity issue. You can't go for small companies.
Yeah.
And you're copy blocked because of your AUM reaching a certain level. Does that mean there's a ceiling for how much a PI can earn on eToro?
Yeah, so there is a limit. It lists it on the Popular Investor information page. Essentially, it's at 75 million AUM. After that, you no longer get any scaling of payments for PIs. Yeah, so the monthly maximum is 150k a month, basically, which is a lot of money.
Well, I mean, I was considering becoming a PI, but it's hardly worth my while knowing that limit's there.
Yeah, I think your podcast's going to make you bank one day.
Do you?
No, but it'll probably generate you something. I think it's a great podcast. I think this is the best content about eToro out there.
Well, it generates me joy and entertainment.
Yeah.
And I just want to help people, Jay. Have you been approached by a hedge fund looking to prize you away from eToro?
So not actually a hedge fund per se, but yeah, a few different private equity groups have contacted me, mainly about crypto, but a few others as well, just about managing their own kind of portfolios and stuff. Some ultra high net worths and such as well have just asked for me to do it privately for them and things like that. But no, eToro is where I'm at. I think there's just so much more satisfaction I get from investing, knowing that some of my copiers are investing with that bare minimum. They started with $200 in 2016, and I've got them up to $2,000 or something. That feels way more exciting to me than turning 5 million into 6 million.
Here's a question from listener Glenn from Alpena, Michigan, in the US of A. He wants to know, managing such a large amount of money, do you have a team of people helping you with research and analysis?
No, but I have really contemplated building one. So essentially, probably if I pass my exams to make sure that I stay as a black star, so that I've got a bit more job security, just to make sure. At that point, I will again look for an analyst, probably on a part-time basis, but maybe full-time to help out. My girlfriend takes care of all sorts of admin stuff to do with the website and to do with, just looking after some of the data and spreadsheets and things that I use and tax and things like that. So she lowers my workload as well, and she is on the payroll. So that's the only thing that she does as well. Yeah, I've thought about building a team. I'm not sure if I'm really ready to turn it into something that big right now, though. especially since the pay cap remains. And if I'm comfortable at this level on my own, then it doesn't really make that much sense for me to hire someone. But yeah, we'll see how things turn out. I think maybe next year I may look at hiring someone.
Okay, let's shift gears now and talk a little bit about crypto. I've heard you say that you think it's more of a risk to not have crypto these days. And in your Q1 2020 performance update on Twitch, you said Bitcoin to 100K by the end of the year, but expecting some sort of correction before then.
Yeah.
The slowdown in crypto could happen in Q2. So you were right on the latter. Are you still confident on the former?
Yeah, it's very hard to, especially after seeing a drop like this, it's very hard to then look at that 100K price target and think, oh, we're still going to get there. But I think when you really kind of dig under the surface, and there are so many interesting sources around Twitter and around the internet, in the crypto space, some of the big fund managers and things are very transparent about their data. Some of the big exchanges as well. So you can really see the inflows coming in from banks and from governments. We recently had the situation in South America, where Bitcoin is becoming legal tender for the first time in a country. And I think this really is, a turning point in the adoption of cryptocurrencies as a mainstream asset class. So yeah, I'm still confident in the price target. As you said earlier, I don't like using price targets, but this is one that I'm willing to kind of hold my hand up to.
Well, as you may know, I have recently begun to dip my toe in the murky waters of crypto. So hypothetically, and just for the benefit of the listener, if a novice was wanting crypto exposure and was thinking to stick mainly with the more sensible coins of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance Coin, maybe Cardano, would more experienced crypto investors like you think that's a sensible approach?
Yes, that's the short answer.
Well, I also note there were some less obvious ones featured in your portfolio, Chainlink and Uniswap.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically, that's the list of all the coins that I have purchased in the last 2 weeks. So purely for the benefit of the listener, what do you think about that, given that they're sort of weighted in Bitcoin and Ethereum as 1 and 2, and then the others smaller amounts?
Yeah. So I think there's definitely the space that Bitcoin is going for, which is kind of almost like as a global reserve currency base settlement layer, potentially between banks. There's not very many people going for that. So you could potentially, if you wanted to spread your risk a bit, have a little bit of things like XRP, which are really going directly at that route. But realistically, I think Bitcoin is the safe bet for that space at the moment. I think it's very likely that we'll see most bank accounts offer clients access to Bitcoin soon. And probably they will actually start running payments through it just as a consequence of that almost. It will just be cheaper for them to move money around between each other using Bitcoin. So I think on that side of things, yeah, Bitcoin is probably a pretty safe bet. In terms of the kind of decentralized finance and the decentralized application side of things, obviously Ethereum is the big name, and I think it's very sensible to have exposure to it. But the race is still very much ongoing, I think. There is room for Cardano or Polkadot or some of these other competitors to catch up if Ethereum doesn't, continue to scale quickly enough. So that's, I think, where there's more room for a very stable and sensible crypto allocation to maybe invest in a few others.
Obviously, none of that was advice. I wasn't seeking advice, nor did you give it.
Exactly. Sharing my opinion.
So let's talk a little bit more about the secret of your success, which we touched on earlier when we were discussing your toggling. You're a regular guy who started on eToro and has risen to the very top. So what do you see as the elements that contribute to your success?
I think a lot of it is timing. I try and think about if I was starting on eToro now, how much would I grow? And I do think that I would grow and certainly get to elite. Elite Pro would be perhaps a bit more challenging. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think part of it is just being in the right place at the right time. I think part of it is that I'm quite unique in what I offer. There aren't very many investors that actually really have an ESG kind of approach from the get-go. There's really only a handful of us. So if you are someone that's looking for that kind of socially responsible approach to investing, then that narrows down your options quite a bit. So I think that helped me. And I think the thing that helped me the most probably was cryptocurrencies. At the time, I was the authority on cryptocurrencies on eToro. Matty Greenspan, who's since left eToro, used to be one of their analysts, is now really, really big in cryptocurrency. And I still remember meeting him in Tel Aviv and, talking crypto with him. And he was still learning at that point. And now he's like a proper authority on the subject. But back in 2014, 2015, 2016, there was no one really invested in Bitcoin. It was just me. And so when that kind of started to take off in 2017, I was the person that benefited because I was the person that could actually explain what the technology is, how it works, why adoption is growing, when most others were kind of blindly speculating, I would say.
That's very interesting. Do you think, in addition to that, there's a bit of inverse snobbery going on? Like eToro has granted regular Joes access to the markets and access to a range of money managers. Do you not think there's an element of them seeing themselves in you and therefore supporting you or gravitating towards you over like the Oxbridge graduate or the ex-Goldman Sachs analyst? Regular people supporting the regular person who has triumphed against the odds.
Yeah, I do. I think that's definitely something else that's at play. And I think you see that in a few other popular investors as well. I think Mariano Pardo is another kind of example of that, And, who doesn't like an underdog story, I guess? I don't think I am the underdog anymore. So, I no longer have that kind of to fall back on, I don't think. And I think these days, I am much more kind of held to account of, is he really that good? And people do, compare me much more directly based on my performance. But I do think that there's definitely something to be said for that. How long that will continue, I don't know. Maybe we'll see an explosion of new talent from people that have grown through the ranks like me without that formal background. We might see the other thing play out, which is that perhaps actually all of us are quite bad at investing, and when the next big bear market comes, we find out. Who knows? I don't think that will be the case, for me at least, I hope. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out. I mean, eToro really is kind of a meritocracy on that front, isn't it? It's it's letting anyone compete with those big names and see how they perform.
Speaking of big names, I've heard you say that the longer your success goes on, the more the incentive for you becomes becoming acknowledged for your results.
Mm.
And who knows, maybe up there with the big names, Dalio and Lynch and Klarman.
Yeah.
So, any plans for a book, Jay?
No, not at the moment. Not at the moment. Yeah, I'm not much of a writer. I'd have to get a ghostwriter, and I think maybe you could do it.
Well, I have an English A-level, as regular listeners will know. So,
I was going to say, you have a good way with words.
Well, I can see it now. The picture of you standing, arms folded, looking down at the camera. That's the cover of the book, and it says, Jaynemesis, From Gamer to Guru, the unlikely ascent of the world's most popular investor.
There you go. You've got the title already. Sorted. I was thinking A Magical Transition would have been a better title, but it's kind of a...
No, that's going to be the name of my book, I think.
I see. Yeah.
What I've learned over 1,000 episodes of Copytraders Club. We have to dream big. Okay, so Jay, some people relax after work with a drink or a smoke. Are you under instructions not to discuss your favorite substances, if indeed you have any?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I don't really drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any drugs. I'm pretty boring, really. Yeah, and also I don't really clock off, to be honest. I don't kind of sit down when the market's closed and say, "Oh, that was a tough day at work." I normally just continue working, really. it's kind of hard to stop. It's quite addictive. My girlfriend, for example, this is a very good example of just how I think I discussed this with the Epic Oak Bond as well. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent.
We love tangents.
Me and Yeppe discussed this at an event, actually. We're both in this kind of mindset of investing, and it's very hard to ever remove yourself from that. So Yeppe always talks about, I think it's apple schnapps or something, some drink that he ended up making an investment based off the back of thinking about a drink when he was at a bar. He was thinking about a drink, and he was thinking about the company, and he was thinking about the brand, and then he went and researched it and researched a bunch of other companies in the space, and then made an investment, months down the line. And I'm similar. Yesterday I was at an electric charger with my girlfriend in our Renault Zoe while we're waiting for our new car to arrive, and I was looking at it. We were at a Shell garage, and Shell have outsourced their charging systems to another company. And so, I was Googling it and finding out what they do. And, I was thinking about it. And my investment in ABB in my portfolio basically came about through that exact thought process, but about a year ago, of looking at who's actually building electric vehicle chargers. And it purely started from seeing a sponsorship billboard at a Formula E race. Is how I went down that rabbit hole, and it's the same with everything. And I think the concept of switching off from investing, it doesn't exist for me. It's very hard for me to ever kind of fully remove myself from that. I see a Coke can on the street, and I think about recycling companies, for example.
Well, that leads us on to thinking about how do you manage stress?
That's a good question. I know a lot of popular investors meditate. I can't really do that. I have ADHD, so sitting still or stopping doing anything is something that doesn't really come that naturally to me. For stress, for me, I don't know. I just kind of keep going, really. It can get stressful. I remember 2018 was an incredibly stressful year. I really was questioning, am I going to have any copiers left by the time we reach the end of this year? And am I going to have to go and find a new job? I just only the year before quit my job. So, where was I going to go? What was I going to do? And that was real stress. And I think that is something that perhaps people don't understand when they look at those big paychecks that popular investors like me get, and they think, it's easy for Jay to say, all of these things when he's sitting there earning 100K a month or whatever. But in reality, we have zero job security. We are purely riding on our performance. It's very stressful. I haven't really found a way of managing the stress, I guess. I just kind of maintain a relatively stressed level, but I'm a very relaxed person generally. I never really get angry or raise my voice or anything like that. I'm just a very kind of chilled out person. So, if things get really bad, then I can still kind of sit back and think, oh, well, life goes on. There's more to life than money. That's kind of my attitude, I guess. I hope my copiers share it.
So on that health front, you're a vegan, or you have a vegan diet at least. You avoid eating meat and animal products.
Yeah.
Minimizing animal protein intake is a good way of reducing your exposure to ill health. But it's what you do eat and drink that matters more than what you don't. And you are a Pringles and Monster energy drink man.
I am.
So what happens when Jay, the futurist, applies his futurist thinking to that?
I'm quite bad at applying my futurist thinking to myself. I'm very good at thinking on a macro scale and very bad at thinking on a micro scale. So, I love to think about the contribution that my diet is having to water and to antibiotics and to all of these different problems on a macro scale. But the concept of thinking about my own health is like at the bottom of that list. And it really shouldn't be. But I think that's just the way I am. I like to think of the big picture. I'm aware of the fact that Pringles perhaps aren't the best thing, and there is a can of Pringles on my desk right now and a Monster. That is genuinely an accurate description of my diet. I don't just say it for fun. But I do think that my diet is better since becoming a vegan. I've become more exposed to a lot of foods that I wouldn't have eaten before. And ironically, I'm one of the worst people to go vegan as well. I don't like nuts. I don't like mushrooms. I don't like all sorts of things. I don't like most forms of potato. I'm an incredibly fussy eater. So turning vegan was a pretty silly decision, really. But yeah, that's just me. I'm idealistic. I guess that's that's just how I am.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not an authority. I'm not, showing you my six pack right now or anything. But I went through a bit of an education myself on all this stuff a few years ago. And I would recommend the book or audiobook Eat to Live by Joel Fuhrman. Have you heard of that?
I've not, no. I will add it to my Audible list, though.
Well, it's all about good nutrition, evidence-based dietary choices. And I think it might appeal to a man of your analytical skills to enjoy learning all about the stats and the studies. And if you were to put your investing skills to work on your own well-being, I imagine there could be amazing results. You feel better, be more sharp, sleep better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have plans for creating little nemesis, but if you were to do so, your swim team would be of superior quality.
Yeah, no, I do enjoy reading those kind of research papers and stuff, and I watch a lot of content about it. But yeah, I need to act on it, I guess, a bit more.
Yeah, Eat to Live. It's really good, and it's actionable. It gives you lots of actionable advice. You have to get your Gbombs into you. Gbombs. Greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds.
Yeah.
If you can work towards increasing your intake of all of those things. And the interesting thing is, even if there's one of those things that you don't like you say you don't like mushrooms.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of mushrooms out there that don't strike you as mushrooms.
Yeah.
The meaty texture of mushroom stalks that doesn't have that sliminess.
Yeah.
That the head of the mushroom, so to speak, has. Anyway, now we're going off on a tangent.
Yeah, we are. That's really interesting, though.
Let's get back to eToro and copy trading, shall we?
Yeah.
Somewhere we both know something about. Now, there's not much point in me asking you these questions that I usually ask about copiers, given that you're copy blocked, but a couple of them are relevant. What role should you as a PI play in a copier portfolio? And can you describe that ideal portfolio with you in it?
I think I could play a number of roles. Obviously, if you want exposure to cryptocurrencies or growth, and if you're looking for an ESG investor as well, then I think I'm a good pick for those things. But I actually I think I see myself as a good pick for people that are new to copy trading and new to investing, to learn the ropes, to see the trades I do. Not trying to push myself as some sort of a teacher or authority, but I think I've seen enough people that have been inspired by first copying me to then go on and really enjoy investing. And I think actually that's the most important thing about investing is to fall in love with investing and to really kind of embed yourself in it, either in picking copy traders or doing your own investments, or even if you just have a passive fund and you just enjoy understanding what's going on in the markets. I think financial literacy and literacy of investing and the investing world is really like one of the good reasons to add me to a portfolio and read my content or whatever, or just follow me. I think that's the role that I play. In terms of building a portfolio for a copy trader, this is interesting. I've listened to your podcasts, and everyone else has said 4 to 7 or 8 or something like that as the ideal number of people. I kind of subscribe to the idea of do whatever makes you happiest, because that's going to keep you investing. And if you look at people like Yoni Asher, his portfolio on eToro, he's almost like he's almost just like an index fund at this point, because he has like 200 positions and 30 different people that he's copying. But it still works. And if that's what it takes to make you enjoy it.
But he's the CEO of eToro.
Yeah.
So why would he not have all of his own products in his shop window?
Yeah, of course. But at the same time, his shop window is making more profit than a lot of popular investors are.
Right.
So that's, I think that's something to take note of. I mean, you talk about finding the most successful copy trader, and I think there's potentially, if you were to go through the data and take out all of his individual trades, there might be an argument for Yoni being up there as one of the better ones, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure he just copies people who say, "Can you copy me?" or that he likes, or that his marketing team perhaps tell him to go and copy. And I think that's the key thing. I mean, if you really like look into the behavioral economics and the different studies, and I'm sure that someone like Robert would talk about this at length. This idea of stock picking as potentially being pointless task, and that random number generators outperform a lot of index funds and hedge funds and things. Yeah, maybe there's something to be said for just picking the people that you like. So that's the approach that I take, because I think that is what's most likely to keep you invested in investing and in learning and in the journey of kind of understanding how to grow your money and risk and copy trading and everything else.
Yes, there's no one right answer. There are many ways to eat an orange.
Yeah, I very much enjoy that you changed that phrasing, by the way.
Yeah, skinning cats. Forget it.
Unnecessary.
I saw someone on Facebook the other day whose approach is to copy only you and to buy more of you in the dips.
That's interesting.
What would you say to that?
I'd say that's more challenging now that you can't copy open trades. You can't really buy into the dips. He can still add, I guess, but or she or they. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm like a massively risky investment, but I am high risk. If, as I said before, I think if you are heading towards retirement and you've got a good chunk of that money behind me, maybe that's not the best plan. But again, if that's what works for them and that's what keeps them coming back to investing, then I'm kind of okay with it. I do advise on my portfolio and on my YouTube videos and things for people not to put 100% behind me, and to limit it to something like 15 or 20% or something. But if at the end of the day, it's people's individual choice, I guess, isn't it?
And I don't know if you're aware, but I've just added a PI or replaced one of my PIs, and my new PI is Lizia Pukaya, the Hungarian contrarian.
Yeah.
Not only because I think he's placed to do well in the coming market, as I foresee it, but also because, as you say, I'm going to enjoy copying him because he's such fun. His commentary is very entertaining. So I'm looking forward to that. Hope you're enjoying today's show. I'm sure you've subscribed already. If you are a successful copy trader, happy to share what you've learned, there's no need to have a public profile. Get in touch. The bigger the club, the better for you. So tell people on eToro about this show. Ask your PIs to come on. That way you will get to know them better. We build this club together. What other PI would you say you know the best on a personal level?
Yeah, this is tricky. I talked to quite a few popular investors, actually, and I would say that I'm friends with quite a few of them. I'm not going to name drop them all now because, I know that I'd miss one out and that would be unfair. I think, realistically, the person that I've known for the longest is one that's actually little known on eToro, called Nuggy1980, I think his username is. Alex Limpkin. Yeah, I don't know if he used to copy me. I can't really remember how we met, but I've known him on eToro for like 4 or 5 years now. And he's just a really interesting, nice guy. Yeah, so, he's the one that I know best out of everyone, I guess. I chat to him relatively often. I think honorable mention to Paolo as well. Paolo Gabriel Sa.
Okay, well, here's another question then, which will avoid any awkwardness about listing people. Who do you see physically the most frequently? Who have you met in person most?
So I think most popular investors I've only actually really met once, or the ones that I've met more than that were a few years ago now. I think the one that I get on really well with in person, and I feel like I learn a lot from. There's two actually, are Jeppe Bond and Wesley. I find both of them really fascinating people. Jeppe is a completely opposite school of thought to me on most things, but like I think we both have a very kind of big mutual kind of respect for each other and how we invest. But like totally opposed philosophies, totally opposed in how active our trading is, in how we communicate, all of those sorts of things, our backgrounds, everything. But it's really, really enjoyable whenever I talk to Jeppe. And then Wesley is much more similar to me. Incredibly entrepreneurial person, extremely sharp and intelligent, and he's one of those people that probably is the smartest person in the room, but understands that it's wise not to appear as the smartest person in the room, which is pretty interesting. You know, he's quite reserved and kind of considerate in his approach to things, and he's always kind of thinking before he speaks and before he acts and before he does things. And I like his investing style. I like him as a person. So.
Yes, I imagined you and Wesley knew each other very well, and you're not that far away geographically from each other. I thought maybe you would meet up for PIMS and investing discussions.
Yeah, but perhaps once COVID has kind of gone away a bit more, I'll get a train up to London and go visit him, especially since he's now full time on eToro.
Name 3 PIs who might steal your crown and be the Jaynemesis of the future.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think we've already discussed him quite a bit, but Robert Merck is definitely up there. So yeah, he'd be the first one. The second one, a bit more boring. I'm going to go with Jeppe Bond. He's got a really long track record. Very different approach to me, but very, very successful. I think the third spot is really up for debate. There's a lot of kind of up and comers, I guess you could call them, who have youth on their side, you could say as well. I think I'm going to go with Paolo. Actually, I think Paolo, even in the short time that I've known him, has grown so much in his knowledge and his approach and the way he communicates with his copiers and everything. And he's one of the most committed people to this of the people that I speak to. So yeah, I think he's got a shot at it.
Okay, when's your exam coming up?
So I haven't booked them yet.
Okay.
You can book them whenever you want. But yeah.
You don't know when you're doing it?
Probably, so I've got 2 exams to take. I'll probably do the first one in about a month, I would say. And then the second one maybe 2 or 3 months after that.
And how hard are these exams?
So it kind of, I think it depends on the person really. The problem for me is that it covers a lot of things that I find to be both dull and almost irrelevant. I mean, obviously, it's very important to have a basic understanding of things like how bond markets work and how different forms of debt structuring works and things like that, because stocks use those a lot, and obviously interest rates and things like that can move markets. But at the same time, it's not really at the forefront of what I'm doing. So of the first book that I've almost finished now for the first exam, I would say probably only about 10% of it really, or maybe 20%, is really actually focused on stock investing, on equities. And the rest of it is much more kind of broad. This is how a clearinghouse works. This is how these are the rules a brokerage has to follow when they execute a trade, all of these sorts of things, which they're useful to know, but perhaps they aren't really actually that important for the investing strategy overall. So yeah, it's challenging for me, especially with ADHD, to focus on it, on kind of consuming that content and to actually sit down and read a physical book. They don't do audiobooks, unfortunately. But yeah, it's not really difficult content. I don't find it's just time consuming, and there's a lot of acronyms.
Well, it is difficult to learn stuff when it's dull and almost irrelevant.
Yeah.
That's a real challenge. Well, that's education for you. So much of it is dull and irrelevant.
Yeah.
In every field. That's the nature of exams. Okay, so just before we wrap it up, as a fan of the show, and now you've been on it, any recommendations for me for the future? Interesting directions in which I can take the podcast?
Yeah, see, I knew you were going to ask this, and I thought that I should probably think of some sort of a good response. But realistically, I think you're pretty much doing everything well. And I think you're covering all of the angles that you need to cover. I think, Felix Falax has kind of got the ongoing drama side of things covered, and you got people like Tom West and Steve and stuff covering, some of the ongoing kind of changes on eToro and the kind of the journey of eToro. I think you cover. I think the unique thing about this podcast really is approaching it really in terms of like optimizing the strategy and learning what works for you, learning the different approaches that investors take, the different approaches that copiers take, and kind of figuring out where you sit in that. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything that I'd change. I think the breakdown's really good. Interviews with popular investors, with copiers, with the solo stuff is also interesting. Yeah, I think the whole thing's pretty well constructed.
Thank you so much. I wasn't really fishing for compliments, but I'll take them.
No, I know, but I couldn't resist.
I'd love to get Tom West on, actually. I've reached out to him. He's just come back from illness. So I don't know if he's got the energy for it, but if he's listening to this, here we are discussing how great it would be to have him on, because I describe him as everyone's favorite primary school teacher when they start on eToro.
Yeah.
Because you sign up and you're clueless, completely clueless.
Yeah.
And there's, as I've said before on the show, there's very little guidance. And in steps Tom to take you by the hand and say, it's okay, this is what you do. And he walks you through the ABCs magnificently.
Yeah, I used to recommend his content all the time to beginners, to new copiers and stuff. In the comments on eToro, just link directly to his videos and say, look, go follow this guy. He'll teach you the ropes. He'll teach you where the buttons are, which ones not to press. Yeah, I think he's done a fantastic job at educating people. And, it's interesting because he has been educating himself as he goes along. And if you go back and look at some of the earlier videos, you kind of cringe. And even his investment journey is a rocky but really interesting one as well. Of going, from hyper growth to super conservative to somewhere in the middle. It's very, very interesting.
Well, it's also been very, very interesting to have you here today, Jay. I think we've reached the end of our chat. It's been fantastic to have you. Hope you've enjoyed your day here at the Copytraders Clubhouse.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thanks for inviting me.
And I'm sure it won't be long before you're back again.
I look forward to seeing what else is coming up and who else is on here in the lounge. Maybe one day we could have like a big lounge party.
That would be cool. Well, I'm trying to keep it interesting. I don't want only the big names. I try and provide a real mixed bag. So Copytraders Club is like a box of chocolates. You understand that reference?
I do. Good movie.
All right, Jay. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
So there you go, that was not one, but two helpings of Jaynemesis. Much like his beloved Pringles, once you pop, you just can't stop. Thanks to Jay for dropping by and for being such a big supporter of the podcast. I suspect it won't be long before you hear from him here again. Plenty of other great guests in the pipeline. Popular investors, eToro content creators, and copy traders. So every reason to subscribe. Thanks for listening. That's all from me. You can continue the conversation on Discord and Facebook. Until next time we meet at Copytraders Club, I wish you many happy returns. Obviously, anything you hear in this podcast is for entertainment only, not financial advice. Do your own research. This is just generic chit chat. We don't know your individual circumstances, etc., and so forth.